Good morning, everyone. Today's Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. Time is now 9:02 a.m. This is a special meeting agenda to continue our fiscal year 22 budget deliberations. Attending Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. We'll presume with our one and only business item, which is the fiscal 22 deliberations, including preliminary summary changes brought to us by our finance director, Dina Darrow, and of course, Michelle is joining us as well. Thanks to her many contributions during Dina's absence here. And by the way, folks, largely today it'll be a discussion amongst the three of us. If any one of us needs to, we'll certainly call on people as is necessary, but we do need to get this wrapped up. So please bear with us. Without any further delay, Dina, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for meeting. We have a large block today. I don't know that we'll need all the time, and we are coming back together at 1 o'clock to talk about the health insurance changes. So this preliminary summary is still in motion, but I did a quick update this morning based on the numbers that Michelle was able to run through. Personnel changes and that sort of thing. There's still some tweaks that need to happen. So I have good news, but I know that there's still a lot of detail work that you want to dig in and work on. So that the purpose today will be for you three to discuss where you want to put your resources, where you would want to cut, and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to walk through this. Our L2 is pending. This is the best number we have for property tax and new growth right now. When we have that final number, we'll plug it in. It could be higher. We don't know at this point. There could be some adjustment here. That's still under discussion. County assistants chipped in and paid for some stuff, including the increase to Panhandle Health. Changes here and here. I'm still reconciling this operational number, but it's fairly close. Nancy Pluff confirmed that this number is pretty accurate based on the most recent payroll. This number has changed based on the most recent information from Alliant, which will be presented to you today. And I think that this option, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, this option is with no changes to the plan, just the prescription.
Pharmacy carve out.
Yeah, so they'll discuss that this afternoon, but this reduced quite a bit. So
Hold on. So it includes the pharmacy carve out, or it does not?
Is your final number the carve out?
I thought she said it did. Go ahead, Sylvia.
I'll just give you some quick numbers. So when I submitted the budget in April based on Alliance numbers, we were at $12,069,372, projecting an 8% increase. If you just look at the premiums in whole and the cost of the insurance, they're projecting a 3.8%, bringing that down to $11,690,000, which is a reduction from our original request of $378,000. If you do the prescription carve out that they'll be talking about this afternoon, that would incur another $276,000 of savings, so reducing the original request by about $654,000. So some significant ways to save money without raising the cost of the premiums passing the cost of the premium increase to the employees.
Yeah. So that's kind of a fun shorthanded preview, but that is contributing to your deficit, which is now at just over $85,000. Yeah. So great work, and a huge driver of this again was county assistants stepped up and paid for some stuff. So these changes to the right, the last time we were together, these were changes that were submitted. Leslie's changes have been updated by Michelle, so these are the cuts and the add backs. This includes a lot of different things that I'm sure you'll want to discuss today, Leslie. Chris, we have the cuts that you outlined here. This one probably won't be needed just because of the prescription carve out. Probably won't need that, but I'm just going to highlight it. I'm not going to change anything. So we haven't run any of these changes through. This is for your guys' discussion.
Okay.
Explain what, when you people are talking about the carve out. What does that mean?
So I'm gonna defer to, Sylvia,
Sylvia, you
because
might as well
she's the
stay here. It
expert
might be
here.
easy. Yeah.
Okay, sure. In terms of the carve out, what we mean by that is we would be participating in a pharmaceutical option that changes the formulary of what's covered and what isn't, or alternatives, other medicines that are going to be offered instead of, I'm just going to say Lipitor. I don't know if it's even on the list just because that came to mind. So maybe there, with the carve out, Lipitor may not be specifically covered in full. Maybe it's an alternative like a generic or something else. So there will be some impact to the employees. About 35 to 60 employees might be impacted if we go to this option, but then the other 700 and some won't be impacted if you're raising everybody's employee cost of the insurance. So that's kind of a,
Okay.
does that help a little bit?
It's not a wholesale change for everybody.
No, and what you'll see as well is that it would be with Optum, but they may be able to negotiate with Regents maybe from a 3.8% increase to a 2.8, saying, hey, we're looking at this other option as a bargaining chip to get them to lower the
Okay, thank you.
costs
That
and stuff.
helps. Thank you.
So Sylvia, if one of those employees happens to be medicated, I hate that term, is used taking medication, gotta be careful, with, that's very expensive, you know, in the tens of thousands of dollars potentially per month. What happens there?
So Alliant and also our carrier for the pharmaceutical will work with the doctor and the employee or whoever's needing that medication to see what's available to them. Maybe there, I'm not sure, but maybe there will be an exception to accept that they stay on this medication based on the physician's guidance. I think this afternoon we'll learn a whole lot more on how
Okay,
that'll work, but I believe there's a little bit of wiggle room and negotiation that can happen with that we can advocate for that employee if it's a medical necessity.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Dina.
Okay, so here are proposed cuts. Leslie's proposed cuts, Chris's proposed cuts. Bill, did you have some time to?
Yep, I'm not
kinda
going
noodle
to
on those?
propose any cuts.
Okay,
We'll
all right.
worry about that when it comes
Okay.
time.
And then Leslie also had some add backs. So do you want to, Leslie, do you want to talk about where you're coming from on your changes for discussion with your colleagues?
Sure. So my add backs are the reason why I went after some deep cuts, because there's positions that I don't think that people can do their jobs without. And so that's where I started from.
Okay.
And so now the district clerk, part-time to full-time, if that was the one that was approved on Thursday, but I need to know where the one is for Carlene's department. Okay, so it must be, so I must have had that line item for the DC employees. So I will switch that 18,000 out for whatever it is to take Carlene's person from part-time to full-time. Because that's actually going to save in travel, and that saves some other expenses.
Okay,
I'm
let's
gonna
go
try to
back. So
pull it
the
up here.
so was the judicial assistant?
The administrative secretary. Go back to your other spreadsheet.
Okay.
So, Carlene, do you remember off the top of your head how much that was?
I don't, let me pull it up. I thought it was about,
So, because I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it on my
No,
form
no,
here.
that was just a
Oh,
subhead.
okay.
So this is approved, yes?
That, if that's, the clerk.
Oh, I found it.
33,000.
Yes.
Yes, 33,937. So about 34,000.
Yes.
Which one was that?
It was a new position.
Was that under the clerk?
I believe so.
The judicial assistant is under the clerk.
Okay.
So that was approved as well?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm just still keeping that one in.
Okay.
So under DC employees, it would be the 30, essentially 34,000.
Okay. So that was, so how much?
What's the BNG jail maintenance?
I think it's a part-time, underground jail maintenance seasonal. I believe it's a part-time employee.
Can you, oh yeah, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm in
Thank
the way.
Our employee?
So the KCSO 911 has 3 ECOs and a 30% of a deputy, the SRO with Lakeland.
Okay, so that's this 125 that you want to add back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on, are we still funding all open positions at 50%? Is that still part of our calculation, or did we change
Yes, and there are just a handful now. Did you?
I sent
That
last
that hasn't changed.
There was some changes, they've been hired, and I sent out last list last week.
Oh, okay,
Right.
okay.
Right, but is it reflected in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be up in this number. That's our current.
Right.
So
So our deficit is what, 34,000?
That's 85.
85,639.
Wrong line. Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, those add backs, I mean, we're gonna be adding positions mid-year because there's no way, and especially 911, they have to have those positions unthawed.
And I did speak with David Callahan about the 2 vehicles, and I spoke with Dan Morris as well. Unfortunately, KCSO does not have a 4-wheel drive that they can spare at the moment. But realistically, they're probably not going to need one until the snow falls. So I think we're okay for the next few months if in fact anything comes up. But we did leave one in there.
Okay, so 1 vehicle.
Yeah, it's
It's up
already
at the
there.
top of his
Yeah,
cuts.
Okay.
we took the one out.
You took one.
Just 1. So we're adding that back or no?
No.
Well, it's fund balance, so I mean, if he's gonna need it,
If
I'd
he's
rather
gonna
him
need it.
not come back in the winter and do it outside of budget.
So put it in?
So 1 is in and 1 is out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll
That-
just this will
Well, the
stand.
one that's out would be with fund balance, right?
Both
Right.
of them.
Both of them are fund
Both
balance.
of them are fund balance. Yeah, but you'll preserve your fund balance. So
But fund balance is created from over person, so if we need
That's
2
correct.
cars, then I rather
Sure.
get the 2 cars instead of doing it outside of. I mean, to me, it's just disingenuous. We knew that he needed the cars. He's going to come back when the snow flies, and so it's.
All right. Good point. Put it in.
okay, so you want 2 in.
Yes, please.
Yeah, he's gonna need them.
Okay. All right.
I think, and maybe Jennifer can speak to this, the monitors need to potentially come back in, and I think that was a fund balance issue as well.
Yes, Jennifer Locke.
You don't need to speak into it.
Okay.
just-
I talked to Clerk Brandon. We made some cuts to the legal fees, and he would like the monitors back for them to do their job, just to have a clearer representation of what they're looking at their screens.
What are we looking at? How much are the monitors?
$7,600.
7,600?
Yeah, they're,
We cut
A
over
dual
14,000 of legal fees out of
Maintenance,
our
building
clerk's budget.
thing.
What are we hitting fund balance for thus far? Balance.
Right now,
We need to get.
our assigned fund balance is at 1.6 million.
That's how much we're using.
That's how much we're using at this point.
Which leaves us, what, about 9?
Yeah.
plus, we're kind of, does the 9 include the 2 million CARES?
No.
No.
Because it's not in there yet.
We haven't
It's still
added it
sitting
yet.
in revenue.
So the way I looked at it is I was comfortable going up to 2 million in our fund balance use because of that CARES
Figuring we
fund.
have potentially.
Right.
And incidentally, is it, I don't know how to phrase this, but how, oh, by the way, side point, before I forget, I just heard from Treasury this morning that they received the submission
Oh, good.
that you guys did. So Jody had left me a message because she didn't get anything. I did. I forwarded it to her, so I imagine she'll distribute it. So
Excellent.
anyway, that's a side point. That's
Okay.
on the 32 million, the ARPA funds. Okay, back to the 2 mil. At this point, this is almost aging. How accountable are we to Treasury for that money?
Well, it was a reimbursement. So that came back to us as a reimbursement for law enforcement. So there's the money was intended to be used for COVID purposes, but that reimbursement had to do with hours being used for COVID purposes. So in theory, it is a reimbursement. So that money is open to be used,
Okay.
and it will hit our fund balance at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Now, there's been some talk, and I haven't been to an ARPA meeting in a while, but there are some things in the ARPA requests that are directly related to those returned COVID funds. But once we have everything put together to present to you, we can talk about that. But right now, the 2 million is sitting as revenue. It will roll into fund balance at the end of the year.
I'm fine.
So,
I think I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
So then, do you want the 76 to come out of fund balance then? Because the clerk ended up giving back 14,000 and
Yeah, I'm
it's-
fine.
okay.
Can I get one too? Never mind. I might have.
Actually, I do have, and I discussed this with Leslie. So when we went back and looked at county assistance, it was about $946,765 that we cut between using cuts and then using indigent fund balance. And so with that, why we did this particularly is district court. We have the Supreme Court this week in our court system right now reviewing processes and things we can improve. But I do want to add back, and I sent this to Leslie, and I think Michelle had done this projection here. I think it's about $128,670 loaded for another civil clerk 2 starting October 1st, and then a judicial assistant, and then I had a clerk 2 to a clerk 3, and then a judicial assistant increase to 95%. I don't know if you want to pull that up, that one chart.
Can we pull
So,
that?
well, I have it about 56,000. What did you say for the clerk too?
Can we pull that one sheet up, please?
Yeah, it's under your personnel.
Yeah.
Just go out for district court.
So I gotta unhide this because it's new position.
It's okay.
Unhide. Okay. And then district court. Okay. So these
55.8.
That's not what we sent out yesterday.
55,827, that's one. Clerk 2.
Yep.
Judicial assistant 65,9.
Yep. So the judicial assistant's already on my list, and then if you want to add the clerk 2 where we took out the part-time to full-time.
So yeah, we last week you guys approved a civil clerk 2, and then
The
the part-time to full-time.
Yeah.
So the remaining request, do we have that one sheet that had the total?
This is what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
128. I don't know where that number is.
Okay, so these two.
That sheet you sent me.
I wonder if it's grabbing more. Oh, that's 121. Yeah.
Yeah, so these two new positions.
Those are brand new because that one she got originally had been 2, so it's been reduced to 1.
Okay,
And then the judicial assistant you were asking for, and then we haven't done anything with the criminal clerk or the judicial assistant increase.
so all 4 of these?
Yes.
Right, but the bottom 2 have not been taken out.
No,
I think they're still in. Yeah, they're still in, so we don't need to worry about
We don't
those.
need to add them back, we just need to add back these
Yeah,
two?
the total request that we projected yesterday from what we already received was 128,000,
Right,
correct?
that's including the 2 that are
Yeah.
still in the budget. So that whole overall clerk request was 128. But the actual was 121 for those two positions.
So now you can delete the judicial assistant, so it's not double counted. Thank you.
And those two moves, right?
Okay. All right.
You see.
So one thing I do want to tell you guys, Keith and I did some research on tax revenue last night, and we're going to be working on these projections. But I believe the revenue that we're going to see between sales tax and revenue sharing and liquor is going to be a pretty good increase. We're going to bring those numbers back to you likely Friday. Just looking at a report off the tax commission, the comparative statement of receipts and distributions, we're already up 17.73%. The previous year, at the end of May of 2020, it was 5.84% increase. So we have a pretty substantial increase that we're seeing between sales tax, distribution, state revenue sharing, and likely the liquor apportionment that we receive.
So Dina, what do we have in there?
We have a modest increase over 2020,
Okay.
so we can adjust that, but we need to get the documents substantiating the increase, so I have some kind of backup to base the calculation.
Yeah, we're waiting to talk to IAC, Tim Hubbard, and then also we have an email out to the tax commission on this.
When do you expect to know?
I think by Friday when we come back, we'll have that
Yeah, our
projected
final meeting
revenue.
is
So
Friday.
if just for budgetary purposes, if Jennifer's predicting, or I'm sorry, the state is predicting 17%, if for our purposes here, if we assumed 9 or 10%, which is really conservative, are we basically balanced?
We're basically balanced, but if you have cuts or priorities that you want to focus on and things that you want to delay, you can do that, because if we have more revenue and we have less expenses, that means that takes the pressure off your fund balance use.
That's true.
But
What-
also, we could potentially, depending on how much the number is, reduce our 3% tax increase to lower. So,
And that's another possibility.
Yeah. So Friday, we're going to be balanced Friday no matter what.
Yeah. One
That-
way or
We have
another.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be fine. So, but these positions, I mean, you know me, I don't want to spend money ever, but I'm seeing bleeding happening in these departments.
There were 10 years we didn't add clerks over at district court, and we need these people, and we were willing to make cuts, and we've done so well with Shelley and county assistants that we continue returning money back to our fund balance and indigent. So, but I know we need this, and I'm very conservative, as you know. I wouldn't be asking for these unless I knew we really need them.
The other thing, once again, David Callahan is running into a compression issue. He's about to hire another building inspector who is now going to start at more money potentially than the two people that are already here and have more experience. So I asked him to throw it on HR for consideration, but I don't know if you want to consider for planning purposes for the two individuals involved, current employees, unloaded, we're looking at about 12 grand annually.
Okay. We
Go ahead.
probably should throw in a compression placeholder, but
Yeah.
I would defer
Yeah, go ahead.
to Sylvia on the next
Go
wage
ahead,
study
Sylvia.
and
Right.
that sort of thing.
Right. So with the compression, I asked Dorothy Cross, our HR generalist, to look at that, and just from a supervisory level, and we have about 6 or 7 supervisors that are making less and significantly
It's
less
an
than their
issue.
counterparts, the people they're supervising. So we'll bring some calculations to the board to look at that. I want to make sure that the departments that have this are in support of addressing this issue as well. But typically you don't have your supervisors or management making less than their subordinates.
Go ahead, Bill.
I wanted to hear from Sheriff Norris.
For the sake of not bringing our issues to the table, I'm hoping that this board understands we have the same issues that everybody else has. So my question is what is your short-term plan for retention of employees whose rents are being adjusted $600-800 immediately.
Good point.
But I mean, I have the same issues that everybody else here has. And I'm going to go on the record and I'm going to be a leader. Yes, do I like low taxes? I do. This is the fastest growing county in the United States of America. For us to consider not taking 3% is not being a leader.
And what about starting new, patrol at a rate of around 29,000? Would that help?
So we only have to look right here in Idaho
And why is that?
because we have similar situation that occurred in Blaine County. In Blaine County, they are the highest median price per house in rent.
That's true.
Who's number two?
We are?
Kootenai County. What do they start? They start their custody deputies out at $1 less than their patrol deputies do. But I am hopeful that the board recognizes these things and let's put a leadership vision on how to resolve these issues. But everything that everybody is saying here, I have the same issues.
Mhm.
But do I want to keep hitting that drum every time? I mean, I'm hoping we have an action plan that we can put in place. But I don't hear one.
I think the answer is we don't.
I do. You know, I'm looking at salary savings for retention bonuses. We're looking at ARPA funds for retention bonuses. So we've got that piece going forward. Do we have the calculations yet to move your control room operators to detention deputies?
Some of them, I'm not asking all of them, but yeah, we do have that number.
8 of them is $139,000.
Do you have that number, Sylvia?
No, for converting, no, I haven't been involved in
convert
that,
them.
so I
I
don't
think
have that info.
See, I'm hearing ARPA, and I know ARPA goes away. And
Okay, I think we're talking three different things. Okay, let's back up. KCSO has a matrix. They've had a matrix. The matrix is being funded. Is that a fair statement?
Yep.
Yes?
In the projection of the
Yes,
2.4,
okay.
yes.
Are
Plus
we
the
also
COLA.
going sidestep? We're also going to we are also going to a matrix for the general pay plan. That's also in the works.
Yes, that was
Beginning in fiscal
proposed.
22. Okay, now let's back up again. 2 years ago, we undertook the study, we implemented the study, we brought our patrol deputies up to a competitive starting wage with, I believe, the city of Coeur d'Alene. Now, over time, I'm not sure, I don't remember how we fare. And then, of course, we had the issue with detention. So I guess I'm asking, where are we now?
In terms of salary for the patrol deputies, they're at a certain entry level basic. They start out at 48,000, but your detention deputies are going to start out lower at.
what is that hourly? I'm sorry.
Okay, hourly a detention deputy starts at $20.28 an hour. Your entry level peace officer, patrol officer starts out at $23.48 an hour.
And when we
And
went through,
sorry,
Sorry, go
Chris,
ahead.
our intent is to move the scale by 2.1% for a COLA. So that'll bump it up a little bit.
And then October, you're intending to start the wage study.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
so now where's the compression? Where does that come in here?
For
Well,
them.
it comes such as trying to hire control room operators, where we have about a 30% vacancy rate. And those are part of our security personnel that watches inmates, inmates who are mentally disturbed. And I have a vacancy, significant vacancy. That's part of the reason why hiring a deputy is a little bit easier, but I'm having difficulty hiring custody deputies at $20 an hour. We had a captain's son that's making $22 an hour stocking shelves at Walmart at nighttime. So all of these issues that the district court and that everybody else is having, yes, we're having. We are hiring control room operators at $16 an hour, and we're getting dismal interest.
How many openings do you have?
8,
Out of
28,
it's almost a third of,
right?
But now this, again, this takes us back, or does it take us back to the wage study that we conducted?
And while we had, we've adjusted the scale since the wage study by 2%.
Okay.
And then our intent, if this all goes through, to move the scale another 2.1%. So everything shifts. And then we would decide our market, starting in October, decide what is our market that we want to compare our positions to, which organizations, and then we'll start another wage study and work with the Maribin on getting that data for us. One of the things we are planning to do is have them look at the cost of living factor and the cost of labor factor to help us determine, because, you know, we're dealing with Spokane and of course just our neighbors right in this area as well who are paying more. So how can that factor in? We'll have to see if that adjusts what our market should be, or says you're fine with the way it's presented. And we'll bring that back to you after we get that all identified for fiscal year 23.
Questions?
I've got another one I want to
Yeah, go
talk about. I want to talk about the fair. What
Let's try to
I
finish.
said I got another one I want to talk about, and you said go ahead.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking it's related to the control room. I'm not so sure.
I'm thinking that is what it is, and we need to do something about it. We don't have an answer at this point.
Right, so if 139,000 is to take those 8 deputies up, then you can add it to I got a blank space right there. Or you can add it to the 125, either one.
Now that's just to adjust 8, not all of them.
Not
just
all,
8.
Correct.
That's the 8 moving from
Control room operator.
pension to control.
Deputy sheriff, yeah.
We have a problem.
Can I
So
make
what
a
did we
quick
ju-
comment?
Excuse me?
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah, please, go right ahead.
It seems to me that part of the, I think, frustration would be that if you have a department head that's complaining about compression, I agree with the sheriff, everybody has issues with compression.
Absolutely.
So, you know, to me, that's not a squeaky wheel issue. That's across the county to address. I think we're all facing that.
Yes.
I think you're right.
And we have not looked at it as a countywide and how staff by time and position and seniority, how that looks, but we need to do that as well. Our first look from HR was looking at the management and the supervisors, but we do need to do an extensive
So that should
progression
be-
analysis as well, because we do have that occurring.
So that should be a primary focus of the next wage study.
We could do that.
You know,
Yes.
I mean, a wage study, it's really incomplete or almost invalid if it doesn't address the compression
Yeah, I
issue.
think that's
Yes,
the first step.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So Leslie, what just happened here?
So
With-
taking the control room operators and turning 8 of them into deputies is gonna cost an additional 139,000 for next year. So I think that addresses 2 issues. Number 1, you're just gonna have more in rotation now. And then number 2, the lack of applicants for control room.
Bill, you, I'm sorry. Kate.
I have another one on this one. Go ahead.
Okay, would you like to set aside a compression reserve for next year?
We can, do you have any
You have any, how much?
ideas, Sylvia?
Well, one of the things that I received an email yesterday from payroll, and they recommended that the pay adjustments not start till pay period 22, which is October 10th, 2020. So there's a few days of wiggle room. And Nancy did a projection that gives us $47,000 to address, probably cover some of the supervisors,
Mhm.
if not all. Shoot. I'm not sure what that amount will look like. 100,000, 150,000.
Is that burden? Is that a burden
That
rate?
That wouldn't be loaded.
Okay.
How many, okay, let's back up just a little bit. How many people roughly are suffering from compression? How many supervisors do we have, if you can hazard a guess, that are earning less?
Looking at it, I think there's about 7 to 8.
Now, this is county-wide.
Yes. Yes.
You know what? Why don't you put in a figure of 50? Because if you've got 7 or 8 and the average compression amount, I'm just taking a hip shot, is 4,000.
Okay,
Just
I'm gonna
put
do
in,
this
I would
as
put
a,
in 50 as a placeholder for now.
Okay, and that would be to just address the supervisory levels. The full compression issue countywide, I have no idea what that would cost. I mean, that,
yeah, every
Now,
time
when
you
you-
hire a new person, you have compression, so it's
Okay,
probably
okay.
widespread. So if we're gonna be looking at that, we wanna address it in the new year. Do you wanna set a chunk aside for that?
Okay, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because it's gonna be more than that. We'll have a little bit of wiggle room, but that wiggle room to start that clean pay period in the new fiscal year, we'll have a little bit there, but we're also gonna have changes between now and when we approve the budget, but we have to stop making payroll changes. So that's kind of our cushion as well. So if you, I don't know if you guys have time before Friday to do a back of the napkin of what you think a loaded reserve would look like, a compression reserve would look like.
Countywide?
Might be good
Yes.
countywide, yeah.
I can try. I know
Yeah.
Dorothy's been looking at it, but we can see if we can come up with something and bring something Friday to you.
Yeah. Would the board be amenable
Yeah.
to plugging that
Yep,
in?
yep.
That along with the COLA and the increase could go a long way to retention.
Dan,
It-
please.
yeah.
No, okay, go ahead.
The prior or the most recent pay study, did we address that the way it was?
Yeah. I guess that's more of a
We
question
addressed
for
all
Sylvia.
components of that?
We the wage study that we did was based on time and position, so it did take care of it at the time. But we still have it occurring. What part of your compression too is you have staff with 14 years of service making less than market or barely at market, and they really should be closer to the max. Our original proposal on the matrix for the general pay plan, chief deputies, and attorneys was to address that, and that I think was about $3.5 million. And if you can find another $1 million to put in there,
Good luck with
that would really assist. But I know, I'm just throwing it out there.
So whenever I hear the pay study come up, I cringe. And the reason I cringe, because I've been here in my 27th year, and every single one of them that we've done, we always find some reason not to follow them to the letter. And if this was followed to the letter, then
We did,
that's a good thing.
we did.
But I would just like to say that before we go down the road, and I said this last year and the year before that, if we're going to go spend the money and the time, then before you make that effort, be willing to spend the money, because it just creates more angst if you do it, and the money is not there to do it. So it's just
Expectations and are never met.
yeah. And that is the flavor, for anybody that's been here for a while. And Chris, I'm just saying, it's a good thing that you do the wage study. But if you do it and you don't follow up, it just creates hard
I
feelings.
think that's a very good point, Dan. I think that's, yeah, go right ahead, Nancy, please.
I just have a slight suggestion.
Can you all hear Nancy? Okay.
I can talk a little bit louder.
No, they can.
Instead of setting a reserve for compression only,
Yeah,
maybe it would be better to set a reserve for mid-year salary changes and or position changes,
That's a great
and
idea.
set a certain dollar amount for that, so when that money runs out, you guys don't continue to improve the mid-year stuff, that you have this much money to do those mid-year salary increases and changes, and that's all that you have next year to play with. Does that make sense?
yeah, so basically what you're saying is to include the compression calculation in the mid-year.
It's not only the compression. Throughout the year, there are mid-year
Everything
salary
else.
changes.
Yeah.
Yep, so
if
for all
we
your
could
HR meetings.
set aside some money to budget for that, then you know when that money has been expended, then there are no more mid-year salary increases or changes after
So
that.
really what you're suggesting is like a mid-year salary adjustment reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
Chris, I do want to
I'm
want to
sorry.
state
Yeah.
with the compression. So what we're seeing, like in these grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, likely, we're hiring at 95% to get people in.
Yeah.
But then you have people that you're starting at 89, 91, 92% that've been here for a few years. So there is definitely compression,
Yes.
especially on the lower end. She could probably speak to the higher end of
Yeah.
stuff. But.
And, you know, our entry level position for a grade 2 starts at like $12.72 an hour. And all the
Fast food.
restaurants and retail stores are starting at 16. It's something we need to maybe bump up the scales even a bit more so that we can compete and get the employees here. And, you know, we have a great benefit package. It's just some of the people that we're trying to draw in don't understand the value of that right now. Eventually they will. Our younger workforce is like, you know, they need to make a salary is what they need to make. And the benefits are like an afterthought. But
So for Friday then, I presume you'll come up with a figure for these mid-year, what
Yes.
Nancy is suggesting?
Yes,
Okay.
we should be able to. And I may have to ask Nancy's help as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Dorothy and Nancy and I, and then we'll involve Dina and Michelle
Cool.
and add in that loaded rate so we're giving you a good picture. Okay?
Yeah, that's
Sure.
a good, transparent way to approach the mid-year changes because we
Mhm.
know we have mid-year
Yeah,
changes.
that's true.
Yeah.
As long as we understand it, that is not a free-for-all. Hey, let's make a bunch of mid-year
Yeah, amen.
changes. It is absolutely need to be documented and supported.
You know, and to put facts to the situation, and the situation that David is confronted with is one of his inspectors, building inspectors, is potentially looking at a job at Hayden, $4 an hour more. If you do the math, what's that? 160. Thank you. $8,000 a year more to cover a smaller territory, to climb fewer hills, to have really almost less challenging, because these guys, our folks, are all over the county, all types of terrain. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Bill, you wanted to.
Yeah, well, I also want to go back to this on-call pay. I think that is, we're finding a little here and a little there and a little here for important things. I think that's a very important thing that we need to find a little for and add that back.
So then I would suggest we find $100,000 to add it back for all the departments in the county that have on-call pay.
I don't think they have the same, I don't think they're the same apples and oranges.
Well, I mean, we had heard testimony that the detectives can't even go to the grocery store when they're on call, and I just find that disingenuous. I really do. I've never heard of that. I've been here 2.5 years. I've been with the county, you know, since 2014, in and out of stuff, and I've never heard that before. So, once again, yeah, it seems like a small amount, but to me, it's treating other departments unfairly, especially when detectives get a $3.50 per hour stipend, not just when they're on call, but all the time.
So you want to make it consistent.
That's what I've done for 2.5 years, is just ask for consistency.
I think it's consistent among apples and oranges, and I don't support that at all.
Other leaders in other communities don't prioritize and value law enforcement, and we're seeing the repercussions of that in other commissioners in other counties and other city officials in other counties. So I hope that you all here prioritize public safety. This is not the county of 40,000 people anymore. We're seeing crime activity that rivals some of the stations that I've worked at in the past. So
That people from KCSO who are on call are likely put in dangerous positions. They're all carrying guns, right? Any other departments in our?
Yep, adult misdemeanor probation.
Okay, well let's include them, but let's be very specific and not just go.
Well, let me ask Barry, from a legal standpoint, if we're going to do this, would it not be? I don't want to let me just ask it point blank. Is it not appropriate to do it countywide? I mean, you qualify as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You have folks on call.
Yeah, I have exempt employees who are on call.
And that was the other thing that I argued too, is I don't think we should be providing it for hourly employees because they get paid overtime when they go out on call. His people do not. So
They're exempt.
Yeah, so exempt, I support that on-call pay for the exempt because they're not getting that additional funds. It's just above and beyond what they normally, their 40 hours per week.
So I think, if I can restate it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think where Leslie's coming from is the detectives are hourly. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, so if they're on call, they are being paid hourly.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, for example, Barry's people are not. They're exempt.
Yeah.
But
So,
I think my experience has been it depends how the policy is written. So if you're requiring, and Barry, weigh in please, if you're requiring an employee to be X amount of miles away from Kootenai County, if you're requiring that employee to remain available, if you're requiring that employee not to drink alcohol, it depends on the conditions of that on-call policy, so each department might change. I mean,
And that's
Well,
why.
that
Sorry, go ahead.
what the sheriff's saying is true in terms of my attorneys who are on call need to be available to come to the courthouse, to go to a crime scene, to basically be here, have their phone attached to their hip at all times. And so there's, it's pretty rare anymore that they don't put in time on call to justify the money that the board has approved in the past. Usually it's much more than that, much more time than the amount of money.
but from a legal perspective, can we slice it that way?
They pay a lot more than we
To
do.
say, if you're exempt, you're not going to get paid.
If you're not exempt,
If
if you're hourly.
if you're hourly.
The policy is written that way, that if you're hourly, of course, if they take a call, they can account for that time that they're working. And then there was a provision for exempt employees that elected officials or department heads could make a request to the commissioners for consideration of on-call pay. And that's done through a stipend. But the Fair Labor Standards Act, because Darren researched it and we looked at it when we were writing the policy, you can restrict their work and how they go about their business. But they don't hold that against us and say you have to pay them, which is we found really interesting at that time. Do you, as a good faith employee relations effort, do you want to pay them? I mean, that's a philosophical decision, but you don't have to provide that stipend for them waiting to be called. Now, if you found that they were getting called constantly, you should do something about it. And saying, well, maybe we do need to give them that waiting to be called stipend, as if there's extreme, consistent, a lot of call outs. But we could ask Darren, or Barry could talk on it.
What is our
extensive.
current policy?
What it says for on-call is that if you're on call, you're not paid until you get a call. So once you get the call, so say you're getting a call, say it's Sylvia, she has the potential to be on call. She's non-exempt. Non-exempt is the big thing. So I'm going to take a call. Maybe it's on the phone. If it's over 7 minutes or whatever, they should be recording that time on their timesheet. Even just a few minutes, they can. And then if they have to go on site, it should start from when they took that initial call. That they're on the clock, they're accruing hours, and potentially it's at time and a half, because most likely they worked their 40 hours already and they're doing additional work. I would say it probably happens in the coroner's office that the employees work their 40 hours and then they're taking weekend call, and that increases their time at time and a half. But they're paid for that.
So I think there needs to be some context of how it applies to the sheriff's office, just so it's clear. The detective that's asked to be on call has to be available to take a phone call for a call out for whatever it may be, just so it's understood. The rest of the 18 or however many are in there now, detectives don't have to sit there. The idea is there's one person that's taking the heat, so everybody else can have their life. So there's a couple components here. The first one is that. The second one thing is, you know, if we want to be competitive in our marketplace, what we're asking for that call out pay is dumbed down quite a bit from what our competitor, and the greatest one being Coeur d'Alene Police Department. You know, we've tried to be reasonable in our ask, and so again, this is about, and to Sylvia's point about a philosophical, it probably is more a philosophical discussion than a legal one, but what I'm saying to you is this does go towards the morale of our people. It goes to the health of our people. It goes to the efficiency of our operation. And finally, it goes to with us competing with people that we have traditionally lose people to.
How many detectives have we lost to Coeur d'Alene?
Detectives, none. But but Leslie,
It's
you know,
an
that's
overall benefit.
But see, that's the default. You know, Dan Green used to call it the golden handcuffs, and he applied it strictly to us. Once we got them and they've been on for 25 years, well, we can just treat them whatever way we want. Well, that's not a good attitude, and that's not a good message to send. Just because the detectives don't go, they can't go. And to be frank, I'm sure they probably would if they could go right over and make what the detectives at Coeur d'Alene Police Department are making. But that's not how it works. When they go there, they start at the bottom, and they got to work their way back up.
Is there any reason that people want to work for your department? I mean,
yeah, it's a lot of things
is it
to
just
do.
I just hear the same thing over and over again, but yet, you know, you've got
Leslie,
some.
I got a question for you. Tell me the last person that came to work for us from Spokane County. Tell me the last person that came to work to Kootenai County from the city of Spokane. Tell me the last person that came to work for Kootenai County from the city of Coeur d'Alene. Tell me. It doesn't happen, and there's a reason for that.
Is money the only reason?
It's a big reason. And I can tell you right now, I've seen at the city of Spokane, they've been through probably 4 or 5 chiefs in the last 10 or 12 years. Their morale they were in a consent decree. They had all kinds of problems. Their morale was in the toilet. It was all auto-zem. All the problems they had over there, you know what? They weren't happy. And I know where you're going. You're trying to say, well, morale's part of it too. Well, they didn't come over here to lose $10 or $15 an hour. It's about money. It's about benefits. And it's also about how well you treat your people.
She's not going to realize it until we have a consent decree like Spokane Police Department did, like Canyon County did.
Well,
And
you
then
know
there'll
what?
be
That's
then
that.
she'll be
You know what,
then
Sheriff?
she'll be forced to have
That
to do
is
it.
really rude. Okay, I'm not going to tolerate that. We're not supposed to be having an argument back and forth. I said no to the 10 grand. These guys have not. Okay, so you're not going to convince me to change my mind unless we do a study of each department that requires it going out, because the coroners, they do go out all the time, and they're not even paid overtime. They get time off. They get comp time. So we need to look at this holistically, and that's why I feel that the detectives are already compensated for their job description. They ask to come as a detective. They say, I see what the job is. I want to do this. And so that's where I'm coming from, okay? The 10 grand, I mean, is nothing. It is an equity issue. So yes, we do treat you guys differently and special already in so many ways. And that's fine. And law enforcement and justice system is one of the things that I focus on. But I have to look at everybody. Okay, the assessor needs a lot more bodies. And I am sitting here going, justice needs it too, and so does the sheriff's department. But the assessor, if they don't assess, and the treasurer doesn't collect, and the auditor doesn't do payroll, you guys don't get paid. And if the prosecutor doesn't prosecute, if the judges don't judge, the whole system falls apart. So I have to look at everything. I can't just look at the sheriff's department and say, here's everything we have, you get it all. I can't do that because it's not realistic.
We're not asking you for that though, Leslie, and I understand where you're coming from. Now, you know well enough that we're going to come here and we're going to do the best we can to convince you of what we need. I get it. I honestly do sympathize with the fact that you do have the whole county. But we're so far off topic. Now we're just talking about what you just said was not that much, $10,000, your words. And so, you know what? This is about an equity issue. I would agree with you. It's about a morale issue and all the other things I've said.
But I think, you know, to harken back to when the conversation started, you're basically saying, look, if we're gonna do it, let's do it across the board.
Well, we need to make sure that we talk to each department that we're addressing and look at the different requirements. But that's what
But who
is
put
the
it in
right
their
way to
budget?
do it.
That's my
Sorry?
question. We have it on the board. We're on the board. Okay, if they didn't ask for it, that's not my fault. Okay, we did.
No,
Yeah, and we've denied it over year from the other departments.
look, I'm
who've asked
willing to
for it.
consider it, but you know what? I like to keep things simple. If we're gonna do it for you, we're gonna do it for everyone.
That's
And I
great.
understand your priorities are different, your risks are different. I get all of that. But the thing is, and I think back to Leslie's initial point, if we're gonna do it, we do it across the board. Because we are a county. If we go to court, please feel free to chime in. Is the court gonna say, well, you know, these are general pay plan, these are officers, public safety, are they gonna treat us differently? When we talk compensation, and I think Darren has kind of drilled this into our heads, we are one. So if we're gonna be one, let's act as one. If we do it across the board.
Which it should be. It should be right for everybody. But I can't argue the other departments. I'm here to argue.
No,
for
I
ours.
understand that, and I get it, you okay with that?
Well, yeah, but not for this year. I mean, we've got to go department by department to figure out building and grounds. How many times are they called out? Which I know recently it's been quite a bit.
But we're talking
So-
fiscal 22 though.
Right, and I don't think we're going to be set up to fund it in fiscal 22.
What are we looking at monetarily? Do we know?
About $100,000 just back of the napkin. Just
Probably.
I just kind of used a blanket.
Because the coroner used to have it. I can't remember what your budget was and
It's about 13,000.
13?
The sheriff's, actually, the detective's amount is still budgeted as well.
Yes, that's what I tried to explain. It's just my cut, not the board's cut.
Right. So.
And so is Barry's. The prosecutor's is still in there as well. Yeah.
And then I made a note for AMP, if the board wanted to reach out to certain departments to add back in. We have until Friday, if you wanted to add those back.
Yeah, that's not enough time to go to the different departments
No,
and
it's
make
not.
that blanket
It's not.
thing. So
So
I'm
what do we?
just
Go
like
ahead.
I started the whole thing. My cuts were just to get the bodies on the ground. That's where my cuts were. So I didn't cut because I thought, you know, this, that, or the other. My cuts were specifically to get more employees here so we don't have burnout, so we don't, you know, abuse overtime, so we don't hurt our people.
Leslie, in your add-in, this is just an easy one. What is that building and ground and seasonal for 16,000?
So, building and ground, Tom
Winter?
Reed asked for a position to be thawed, and building and grounds asked for a seasonal. So I put 2 seasonals in there because I didn't think we had enough money. I couldn't find enough money
Just
to add
wasn't sure
an
what that
unthaw.
was. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Well,
so
and-
it's 2 seasonals.
And to add to that, we never really replaced Sean. So
Correct.
they're really down at full time, technically. Okay, so for Friday then, along with this reserve for mid-year, are we going to include anything for overtime? You know, we can always back it out.
Well, overtime has already been taken care of.
I'm
So
sorry,
on
on call, forgive me.
call. It's,
Put the 100,000 in there and let's see what happens, because when we get to Friday, if we have a problem, we're going to be cutting.
Are you gonna talk about this?
It's going to be no different than
What's that?
Are you gonna talk about this?
previous years.
The reason I wanted to know that is because of the cuts that they're asking
see
for.
that both Chris and Bill are
Really
supportive
aren't
of
that
this.
much in the grand scheme of things when I checked this.
I am not without more detail oriented stuff, and I'm still in favor of our policy where it says exempt employees
If we get pushed, what we're gonna have to give on.
are addressed.
Well,
And non-exempt because they're hourly or not. Okay,
Yes,
understood.
They get paid when
And
they
we
get
may
called.
come back to that, but just put it in for now because we can always take it out.
All right, so these all, just for the sake of the group, all of these cuts and add backs are not plugged in here. These are all just ideas of commissioners.
Sure.
Something has been added in. So, are there anything, is there anything here, either add backs or cuts, that the board wants to make permanent?
Yeah.
that
No,
wants us to add in
I have
right now?
I have a couple more that
Yeah.
very
Okay.
important. Number one, I want the fare reinstated to whatever it was in the beginning. What was the fare in the beginning? Good look. Just seems to me that it was cut with real facilities.
I think it's still in there.
Fair is in there for 120.
Yep.
It's not cut.
Not cut at all.
Nope.
Okay.
It's more than it usually
We
I know
started
it's
to,
more than
but
it
we
used
did.
to be.
Yeah.
Okay, we started to. I'm just concerned with a 10-day fair, and we've been taking little pieces out of the rear end of the fair for a long time. Do this, do this, do that.
No.
On top of that, the Veteran Service Officer, we're going to lose this person, I'm telling you. He's a very specialized person. And what comes to mind is the same thing that happened to one particular individual who left us, who was in charge of radios and
E911.
yeah. And I understand that. And when you got a person like that, you can't. They're not a clerk. He's not a detention deputy. He's something very special. Same with being a veteran service officer. You can be a veteran service officer by joining any veteran service group, and instantly you are. But to try to become a veteran service officer as a private citizen, it's about a 2-year process of background investigation from Washington, D.C., of making at least an 80% on a test on the Federal Register and on Veterans Administration policies and procedures, because it's key to helping. And we have 16,000 vets in this area, approximately, plus their spouses. And to have one person that knows this stuff because of his experience, and then have him depart because he can find a lot more money fairly close by, is a mistake on our part for $6,000. I don't want to lose that fellow.
I think once again, the problem now becomes all the department heads coming forward and
If they can make a
stating the
case,
same.
let them come forward.
Yeah, with 16,000 veterans in Kootenai County, I really find it hard to believe that we would not be able to find a replacement. I like Tom. I don't want him to go anywhere. But once again, this is piecemealing and picking favorites and doing that. And I just don't think that's healthy for the organization.
Well, you sure did it with the sheriff's office,
How so?
with 911. You did. You stepped in there and went boom.
Would
Because
this be
you couldn't find
had-
that talent someplace else.
would this be
Go ahead.
part of the spirit of the whole retention
Yes.
and the mid-year changes
Yes.
pool? Could that be rolled into that small amount you're talking about to address the compression and not being at the right level? Could we say that is part of that pool of adjusting wages mid-year?
If we discuss it in the future, but I'm absolutely dogged on this thing because it affects a lot of people, and it affects them severely.
Yeah, we're getting into delicate ground here, and I don't want to go into exact. Sylvia, the individual, what's the history here? There was an increase given when?
I believe in
Wasn't there one in
20
November?
November.
November of
this year.
this year. We did a market study. He originally, when he was hired at 95% of market. He is not at 95% of market now. I don't have the numbers with me. I can get those to you. But Bill had advocated that he was trying to give him that full amount when he originally asked for it. And the board said, no, let's give him a certain percentage. I can't remember what it was. And then that it would be looked at for budget.
Okay, so come budget, what are we looking at on average? We have a 2.1 COLA, and what is it, another 2% step in grade?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah,
He would be closest, you put him on closest step plus the COLA. And I should have brought my laptop. We could have looked it up of what his looked like. But on average, Nancy, what do you think that increase overall staff is?
I think the increase overall for staff is between 3 and 6%, depending upon their job. After the 2.1, it goes up to 3 to 6% for getting the closest step.
So maybe Sylvia, you can let us know exactly where he falls.
Yes.
And I'd be comfortable putting in that in the category to be looked at later.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll come back to us, what, on Friday with this?
Yes, or if you'd like, I can send you an email so
Yeah,
you
that would
have
help
it ahead
too.
of
Does that
time.
help?
Yeah, we can just check it real quick
Okay.
and send it to you.
Okay.
So Chris had reserved for compression 50,000. Would any of you guys be amenable to that too? The compression that she's going to come back with Friday, right?
Yeah, we were gonna roll that in. I think Dina suggested rolling it in, or
what do you think the
Nancy, you
number?
did.
That's where we're gonna
Rolling
move
it
back
into,
Okay.
Be more than 50 though.
yeah, be more than,
Oh, yeah.
into the whole mid-year.
Right.
But I
to the
think
whole,
you're probably gonna wanna at least target some percentage of that or some dollar amount as compression so that we don't get into a situation where we wind up giving out the money
Yeah.
and then discover that we haven't solved the compression
Correct.
issue.
okay, so
Right.
that's going to be a pending item. And we can work together this week.
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep the board informed.
Does anyone else feel comfortable with that ask? The two for the reserve for compression?
And
You
make
guys
your
okay with
changes.
Specifically what, Jen?
With the 50,000, she's going to come back with a number, but initially you had
Oh,
50,000.
you mean as a placeholder for now?
Yes.
You guys okay with the 50 for
For-
now?
Department.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Bill, you wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted, I was,
Yeah.
I think it was Dan who said it, about 3%.
She's right about that.
I think in a county that's growing like we are with the needs that we are seeing, and when we sit there and look at this budget, these budgets that we look at, and we try to shave the 3% to look politically correct or make it 0 so you can go out and campaign and say, I voted for no tax increase. Well, I'm going to vote for a 3%. And I've done that before when I was running without a problem because I can justify it. And I hope people think about that. That's all.
Well, I can guarantee you this is not about politics. It's about serving the needs of the people at the lowest possible cost that we can, yet serving them. So that's beautiful. You can just sit there and say all day long, oh, it's political. Yeah, it's not political for me. And people who've watched me the last 2.5 years know I don't do things based on re-election. I do things based on what's right for our people, what's right for the taxpayers. So you can have your own thoughts all day long.
Okay. On that
Just
note,
one more thought.
Sheriff, please.
Mr. Chairman, I see that the ammo was under your column there.
I'm sorry?
The ammo was under your column.
The ammo, yeah?
We don't set the price on ammo.
No, I don't think it's that so much. I'm gonna, Nancy, can you jump in here? We looked at prior years, Sheriff. Go ahead.
The ammo that's under Chris's was $15,000 that was used by SWAT for their non-capital equipment last year. And they rolled that into ammo, so that's above and beyond what their normal ammo budget is.
What's the SWAT ammo number?
How much is it?
Yes.
I believe it was $35,000, but we removed $8,800 from that at the end of May. So I don't believe the whole $15,000 needs to come out anymore. I think they've already taken just over $8,000 away.
So what are you suggesting? Where should that be?
7.
What do you think? 7?
Isn't ammo more expensive this year than it has been?
Very.
Starting to come
How
down.
much more?
And it's starting to come down, Michelle.
It's starting to come
It
down.
is starting to come down.
Okay, but I mean, I know it was at a premium just
Right.
not too long
It
ago.
Yeah,
was.
but that was,
And
you're
It was
going back.
expensive.
If it helps at all, they have about a $20,000 budget for ammo this year, and they've only spent about $10,000 to date.
Good.
And we're about 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. Okay.
Okay.
So what are you suggesting? 7? Okay.
Chris, is that as I recall in the prior hearing, is that money, that was just a kind of a percentage you weren't, for lack of saying it another way, you're kind of shooting for the hip a little bit about how much to take.
No. What was happening is you were budgeting that every year, but it wasn't actually being spent, if I'm not mistaken. What you're,
You are mistaken. They were spending it.
well, then why is it in there?
They were spending it on non-capital equipment every year, but it was made for a one-time purchase, but it never came out for the subsequent year. They just left it in their budget, and they would spend it every year
Okay,
for
so
non-capital equipment.
okay, so then what are we looking at here?
This year, they took it out of non-capital equipment and rolled it into ammunition instead of removing it from their budget completely.
Okay. So what's the recommended figure here?
They've already removed just over $8,000, so I think $7,000 would
Okay,
be
fair enough. There's your answer. I got it
Sure,
wrong.
I understand. Because she's saying
It's
we took
confusing.
stuff out of non-capital equipment, and I that's anecdotal, and I mean, I believe what you're saying. I just don't remember, or I can't default to what you're talking about at the moment.
It's confusing.
It is confusing, but let me just say one thing about the whole ammo thing. This has been a weird year. Obviously, the market it went sky high. The ammo, you couldn't find it, and we had to go back and readjust our numbers because what we were paying for a box of 9mm a year and a half ago was about 11. Now it's about 30. But in full transparency, full disclosure, it is supplies are coming back. A box of AR-15 ammo was $16 a month ago. It's down to 11 now.
So the prices
So
are coming down.
you know, full disclosure. Yeah, there's a lot of factors at work here. So
Okay, so we'll reduce the cut.
that's not going to hurt us.
So it's been reduced. It's been reduced from 15 to 7.
Right.
And again, this is just,
Consider
none of this is being run through at this point.
$8,000.
Is this a cut that the commissioners would want to actually run through at this
Okay.
point?
Yes,
Emma?
that's fine. And then on the various, my various cuts, you can take $7,000 out of that because that's where it's being double counted.
Okay, so where is that?
The various.
You just had it clicked on the
Various.
various, so 139. Yeah, it's 132.
Okay,
Can you speak?
So the cut is 132.
Commissioners, Commissioner Chairman, just one quick note again on this. Tammy can kind of explain a little bit of what Nancy was referring to. Go ahead, Tammy.
I think the line item that we use for ammunition is also covers under the gun supplies. And in so doing, I don't think they have the non-cap equipment. They haven't spent that much money in the non-cap equipment, as opposed to maybe if they kept it in there, it was used for the ammunition as well as some of the gun supplies that the
Right,
SWAT would
right.
actually use. So I'm not sure I understand the non-cap equipment that they just leave in there.
I
You
gotta
said it
defer
is
to you, Brad.
confusing.
No, that's totally okay. There was 15,138, I believe. That was in last year's budget and the budget before for one-time purchase. I think they had a door breacher and some other equipment that was purchased that when the budget season came around, that money that was for a one-time purchase did not come out of the budget.
Yeah, there was rifle cases. There were, I remember
It was
that.
mixed in with other stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, but it was an additional SWAT budget with it was this. You guys came and said we need 15,000 for these one-time purchases,
Right.
and then the next year you just kept it in there.
Okay. It still doesn't deal with the ammunition actually, so for the decrease in the ammunition.
Well, instead of taking the whole 15,000 out, we're just taking 7,000 out.
Yeah.
And under various, under Leslie's cuts, does that involve any sheriff's office various?
It's the email that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
Yeah. You can, I'm still happy to get together and talk about it and figure out.
There you go.
This has to do with travel and training?
Yeah, so all I did was take the additional travel and training out and left what you had last year.
Well, obviously last year we weren't able to do a lot of travel and training.
Well, and I looked at the trends. I have trends from 2016.
Yeah, and
You might not do much more now. Now they're complaining about a shortage of jet fuel.
Yeah, I didn't go based on 2020. I went based on this year's.
and
You
violence.
could drive.
We're going to ask for a bus.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So, without having further discussions on those various items, I would suggest that we leave those in there.
That's fine. It just increases the deficit.
But you know exactly what comprises.
I do.
That
I
figure.
do. And so does the sheriff. I gave him an email talking about that. And I've
Your
been
fellow
trying to meet with him
commissioners
for
would
2
like to
weeks.
see that too. not
Yeah,
just-
so are you guys going to have further discussion on this? Or are we at an impasse, I guess
I'd
is
like
what it-
to. So here, I'll just,
ahead.
so under SWAT, I did decreased the additional weapons and self-defense by 4,000, the ammos by 6, but you decreased by 7, the travel by 3,000, patrol ammo by 65,000, travel in all departments by 39,000, jail ammo 22,000, and that comprised 139, but because of the 7,000, then it's 132.
So Leslie, I would just have to ask, how did you arrive at the $65,000 cut on the patrol? ammo?
Because in years past, in 2016 you went from 23,000 all the way up to 136,000 in this request, and so budgeted in 2019 was 30,000, 2020 was 56, 2021 was 71. And so I just took it down back to closer to the 71 figure for 2021.
Which makes sense.
Again, if I'm correct in my memory, which I'm not always, but I do know one thing for sure, that the ask for ammo did go way up in this budget because of the availability in the market.
Sure.
So what you're saying there is logic in that, okay? We can't predict how volatile it's going to be, but
Right.
again, being transparent, it looks like it's getting better right now. So the truth shall set you free. So
Right. And like I said, I'm just trying to get you those ECOs that were taken out of the
Okay,
budget.
so are you guys going to talk further, or are we going to stop?
Yeah, but I would, in the interest of efficiency, I think that we have a collateral system for a reason that you have set up, and that I think that our commissioner, who is our collateral commissioner, should also be involved in these discussions.
You're talking about Bill.
Yes.
See, this is the fun part. Liaisons are for when the department heads and the electeds need to talk to somebody on the board. It doesn't mean the board cannot talk to anybody else, because I have to make a decision based on all 6 elected officials and all 14 departments. So we need to be able to freely talk to everybody else.
Yeah.
And go through that. That's why for 2 weeks now, I've asked for a meeting with you to try to go over this so you and I can be on the same page before I bring this. But I'm down to the wire, and so I just said, okay.
And that's a fair request. Now, maybe you stay at an impasse and we have to make a decision on Friday, but I think for the sake of trying to get some sort of compromise, it's probably.
See,
Bill,
I have.
you can be involved. I mean,
Yeah, it just, in the interest of efficiency, it seems like we have collateral responsibilities for a reason, and that's to improve efficiency. But
you know, I can give you another example. Public defender and the new facility. Leslie took the lead on that, and I'm perfectly fine with it. I am the liaison, but she's helping me out, and I welcome it. And I think this is what happens. You know, I might decide to meet with a particular department. Maybe I pick up on something. I might inform the liaison and say, look, I want to take this up. And I think Leslie's point is valid. The purpose of having a liaison is for you to know who to go to if you have an issue or something you need to discuss, which then could turn into a broader meeting if necessary. But it doesn't preclude any one of us from getting involved in anybody else's situation as long as we're apprising the other member. Just try to work it out.
Mhm.
If it turns out that we have an impasse, we're going to solve it on Friday. We have to. Yes? Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Chris, just one final question. That health 70-30 on your cuts, what was that?
No, you can discard.
Yeah.
Are we disregarding that? What happened with that, Dan, was before we had a figure, and we have a preliminary figure from Alliant, I was saying that the county would pick up the increase at the rate of 70%, and then the employee the other 30%, but it looks like that's not going to be necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else with the cuts that you guys have down that we could agree upon if there's two to then plug in for the preliminary number? You guys want to go through each Leslie's and
Well,
what you have for Chris?
The North Idaho Museum, I mean, we give them 15,000 every year. This is an additional 20,000, and just really, if we're trying to fund necessary operations, I just don't see that that's a viable option this year.
Got a victory on the ammo, but
And then
held radios and the portable.
PD personnel is also, we're addressing that by wages and all that stuff. So I haven't had a chance to meet with Ann to get better numbers, but I don't see how we can just give her department all raises when we're not doing that for the rest of the county.
Exactly.
So is there any agreement that we can come back either this afternoon or Friday with the two cuts that or the cuts that Leslie has and Chris, so we can plug that in as we go through each of those?
Yeah, if any of these, if you feel like you're up for any of these cuts, we can plug those numbers in, and that just gets us closer to the end.
I'm fine with every single one of Chris's cuts.
Okay. I see some commonality on this one.
Okay.
Are we good with that one?
Okay, now help me out. North Idaho Museum, what were they asking for?
$35,000
What
this year.
What did we give them in the past? Was it 10?
15.
I'm fine.
This is an increase.
Okay, so you're good with taking that.
Bill, you're okay? Okay.
And this
Okay.
one, we're always gonna.
Yeah, we're always going to disagree on Jobs Plus.
Throw it out there, right?
Well, and again, here's the situation, and I think Sheriff sort of touched on it earlier. We're rapidly becoming a Sun Valley. And what is happening, and I'm going to sidestep here, we have investors, it's fair to call them that, never mind, I won't say anymore, who are coming in and they're overpaying for multifamily homes. When they overpay, they raise the rents, they force people out. We are headed for a homeless crisis in this community because people, they're just coming in, and I can tell you from anecdotally and even information that I get where people are paying, say, $1,000 or $1,100 a month, and they're seeing increases to $1,600 and $1,700 a month. They can't afford it, and they have no place to go because everybody's doing the same thing. The reason that I keep and we've been at the same funding level at $45,000 for the last 3 years. It's not just that they're bringing people in and companies in, and they are. We get a regular report quarterly. In fact, I see it monthly. But what's happening is they're working with K-Tech to get people trained. If not, obviously, these are the folks that are not going on for a 4-year degree. They're going into the trades. They're getting starting wages of $50,000 and $55,000, so they can afford to join the labor pool and live here. If we cut that, we're basically slitting our throats. Same 3 people. They've been operating with a staff of 3 now for years.
And I would disagree. They get a lot of private funding. I think it's 70-30, 30% coming from government, and I rather put that $20,000 back towards ammo.
I agree with Chris on this one.
Okay, so
Leave
we'll
it in.
agree no.
Leave it.
So
Yep.
45,000 is what we have?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And the public defender personnel, Chris, do you want to hold off on that?
Yeah, what are we, okay, so we're saying we're going to include that as part of the broader wage
Yes.
situation?
Yeah, this is above and beyond the wage increases and the steps and all the other stuff. This is a specific request by her to do a bunch of increases and changes in her.
And are these
Staff.
increases coming from hours versus grant?
So the 140 is our portion. It's actually 213 or over 200,000, including the grant.
I'm
So
fine.
I just took ours.
I'm fine with Leslie's cut.
Okay. All right. I don't know if this is still the right number for EOs
It's
to
the
get
back of the
EOs to
napkin.
market.
It's back of the napkin.
Nancy, do you know?
The cost
or
of
to Sylvia?
taking elected officials to market is $196,000. If you give them a 4% raise, it's about $50,000. So that is to give them a 4% raise instead of taking them to market. That is what Leslie's proposing.
Go ahead.
So in the wage study, for the elected officials, salaries were significantly more than what you are making currently. And then that doesn't even bringing you to market doesn't even factor any COLA increases that have been gone along the way. So it's based on the fiscal year 19 wage study that we did. And that total, like Nancy said, is $196,000 to bring you guys to market.
So when you say bring us to market, per the wage study,
For the wage study.
and no additional increases since.
No, yeah. You, I believe you guys received a COLA. So the first year of the wage study for fiscal year 20, I think elected officials got a 3% increase. And then last year for
Was that
fiscal
2?
year 21 was 2%. So you haven't addressed getting the elected officials to market.
So if we take, excuse me, if we take the EOs to market, what does that do to the 150? It wipes it
It'd
out.
be it'd be you would need an additional
40 some odd thousand.
$46,344, $45.
So we'd be adding 196,000.
No.
No,
Right
you'd
now,
be at-
196 is in the budget right now.
Okay.
I said I want to cut that 196 by 150 and do the 4% COLA.
Oh, I see where
That's-
I see
yes.
where you're coming from.
So it's already in the budget.
It's already in the
So-
budget.
Okay, got it. Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
That 2.4 million that we talked about that's being place marked, it includes the elected officials at market.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That answers it. I have my thoughts.
I think when you look around the other counties in this, what does Bonner pay their
Mid-80s.
mid-80s, and what's their population?
About 47,000.
And how many days of work do they week?
Well,
Do they
that
work
I
through the
don't
week?
know. That I don't. Boundary is like, I can't go by boundary.
Boundary. Okay.
Forget boundary.
But the point is, we're not even close. So I have no problem with an increase.
Canyon pays, I think, over 100. Ada certainly pays over 100. I think they might be
Yeah.
over 110.
Yeah, they're like 117 or
Or
something.
is that they 117?
Yep.
And they've also had a proposal by one of their commissioners to raise it by 10 grand, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's beside the point. And Bonner at pretty much just a little more than a quarter of our size is mid-80s. Taking us to $90,000, I don't think is unreasonable.
That's what I would.
So what I'm hearing is we would just have that as part of the 2.4.
That's part of the
Go to
2.4.
90. Go to 90.
And no increases as a reason. No increases going forward from that figure for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And then in our wage study for 23, we'll include the elected officials in that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have two agreeing not to cut that then.
Right.
We're gonna leave that in.
Yep.
Okay, next is this BSO personnel.
Yeah,
You're
and I
gonna
think we
come back to
talked
us
through
with-
that.
no.
Yeah, I'm
Hold
gonna
that in
give,
reserve.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
minuscule, really.
So Hilo laptop. There's two that agree to cut that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
First time I saw that, I said, "Is that a laptop for a helicopter?"
What is that? Okay, the handheld radios, it looks like. Are we waiting because we think it can be covered under ARPA? Is that why you had that in there, Chris?
I think so.
Is there any agreement on that cut for this?
Am I
well,
too severe?
We need the radio. So it either needs to be part of that 2 million CARES or it needs to be part of the ARPA. So no matter what, it's got to be in the budget somewhere. But whether it's fund balance, ARPA, you know.
Thank you.
Okay, so
So we're gonna leave that?
I would. I mean,
Okay,
right
let's
now
leave
it's
it.
fund balance, correct?
Yeah, leave it.
right now it's funded by fund balance.
We have 2, 3.
We
Okay.
would reimburse ourselves.
Same thing with the portable?
Yep.
Sounds like, okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna keep both and just. Okay, I don't know what the proxy card is.
Airport truck.
Didn't we took it out? Didn't we?
Yeah, it's fund balance, so it doesn't help our.
Yeah.
It doesn't help, but is it part of your overall strategy? Because if you don't spend it on a truck, that fund balance is there to fund projects or whatever else.
I didn't think you
the
needed-
goals of the board are.
I didn't think he needed the truck this year.
Okay, so is anybody else okay with cutting that?
I'm okay
You
with
are?
cutting it.
Okay,
Great.
all right. Okay. Building and grounds truck,
They,
they got 2 new ones this year,
yeah, plus they need the lawnmower,
right?
which is
Those are nice.
not that a lawnmower replaces a truck.
They're
But,
expensive.
but yeah, his lawnmowers aren't. But yes, I would take the truck out, especially if they got a couple.
And they'll just come to us and say
Yeah.
we can't plow and we'll just have to do it mid-year. So it was by fund balance anyway, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, Bill, you all right? Okay, good. All righty.
Give me the money.
Anything else up here? Okay, for add backs. There's some add backs here. We will have a number for reserve for mid-year that we'll get with HR and plug that in. We'll just plug it in as a pooled position like you did with the 720 plan. We would just plug that in.
And I'm fine with Leslie's add backs.
Okay, so
Are you thinking that's the compression piece too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
compression,
compression.
mid-year changes, maybe we just make one big pool.
Okay.
Okay. So you guys are good with adding back these positions?
I'm okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that, and this is still in, that's not cut.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I'm hearing, the sheriff and the board are going to talk about these specific items, and we'll have a list for Friday. Or if you come to a conclusion, if you could send us an email with those specific cuts, then we can run those through ahead of time. That would help us bring you a cleaner copy for Friday. So we will run these through. Also, just got back, so making sure that all of these numbers, the current numbers, are correct, and that we have all the mid-year changes from what was processed last week in. So we have a solid
Good. I
number.
was hoping, because we cut off at 14, but we just approved those Thursday, so.
And some of those are in. We just have a few. Michelle was able to run through most. Yeah, so we're pretty close on this one. I'm off a few bucks on the operations. It's not a lot, but I'd like it to tie out perfectly. So this really helps us. We can run these through, get everything reconciled, send you something via email. We can share that with the elected officials too, just to keep everybody in the loop
Cool.
of where we are.
And for now, you are assuming a 3% tax increase. Is that correct?
Yes, and we're still waiting on the state to give us a final number
On
on
the
property tax according to the final.
So where does that leave us?
Right now, well, we haven't run these through. You're at 135,639 deficit right now. So pretty good. So that'll go up, of course, with the add backs, but once we shake everything out and get everything run through, we'll let you know.
Jen, if the 17% is real,
It's real.
It's
I have the
Sorry.
documentation, I'm fine.
just roughly, what is that in dollars?
Until we
Is
talk
it,
to
is
the,
it in the hundreds of thousands?
until we talk, I don't want to give that number until we talk
Okay,
to
fair
IAC
enough.
and
Okay.
tax, but I feel we'll be in good shape on Friday.
I'll ask you differently. What was it? What was it last year?
what was it, 5 last year, 4?
The changes? So the last changes that Dina had for projection, we increased the revenue by, is it 1.8? I was trying to go off last night.
About 1.8 million
Yes.
is what we increased it by.
So that revenue total, let's see, was it, I had a total of 11,800,000. Is that what you had?
That sounds about right.
So
that was,
I'm very optimistic, but again, Keith and I sat down last night, and we're going to be talking to Hayden too, because everyone's going to get a portion of that, the sales tax, and then liquor apportionment too. Just seeing the increases over the years, and as Seth said at the IAC meeting, the state had a $800 million surplus.
that's correct.
So
And as part of ARPA, they're getting, is it 1.6 billion?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Oh my
But that'll be handed down to the non-entitlement units is what they call it, the smaller cities that didn't qualify for direct distribution. So there's a lot of movement there.
So Dina, with the sheriff contract with Hayden, do we have plugged in? Was it 370 or?
I'm going there at,
So we could
at-
possibly
right now,
have
I'm
more
going at
even
11.8.
revenue coming in.
I don't know. I'm going
I'll
at
show
11.
you what I found last night.
So
Okay, fair enough. Are we okay? Are we good?
I think we've made some really good progress today. Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. Public comment.
When's the meeting Friday?
How many?
When is the meeting Friday?
Yeah, what hearing on
He's got
Friday?
8
When is
people.
that?
1
I'll ask
o'clock, I
again.
think.
Public comment, please.
1 o'clock.
Coroner wanted to say something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Coroner wanted to say something.
You wanted to know about the next meeting?
No, I know it's at 1 o'clock.
Thanks.
Okay. I don't have my clock on.
Oh, 10:37.
Okay, 10:37, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
1 to 4 Friday.